The Oversight Committee in Congress hosting another hearing, but this one's a little bit different. UFOs, UAPs. They're bringing in some very credible people like this guy, David Grush, who's already blown the whistle, saying he's got inside information about what the government has in their possession, including alien craft and other technologies. So the Oversight Committee is going to be conducting a hearing in public. We'll take a quick look at what they have on the schedule, but they're giving us a preview. Representative Luna and Tim Burchett both came out and gave us their take about what we expect to hear. But some more background from the Oversight Committee before we get into the preview. They posted this. They said, all right, it's time. We're holding a hearing titled UAP Phenomena, Implications on National Security, Public Safety, and Government Transparency very soon. It's going to highlight legislative efforts like what we saw from Schumer and other politicians. They say that Pentagon and other bureaucrats have kept this information hidden. And so now at 2022, at the direction of Congress, the DoD created the AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, to investigate these reports. They're spending millions of dollars examining these things, but they are not being forthcoming. They're not declassifying the results of their investigation. And so these dark investigations need to be revealed. And so they're going to do that. Wednesday, July 26, 10 a.m. in Congress, we've got three credible people who are all going to be coming and testifying. This guy, Ryan Graves, Executive Director, Americans for Safe Aerospace. We have Commander David Fravor, former commanding officer, Black Aces Squadron, U.S. Navy, and David Grush, former NRO, National Reconnaissance Officer, UAP Task Force, and at the DoD. Hearing is going to be open to the public. It's going to be live streamed online. We're all going to be able to hear what Congress has to say. Now, some more background on this David Grush individual. He, in June 2023, publicly claimed that unnamed officials told him that the U.S. government maintains highly secretive UFO recovery programs and that they are in physical possession of non-human spacecraft and dead pilots. 2022, Grush filed a whistleblower complaint with the U.S. Office of Intelligence, ICIG, to support his plan to share classified information with the Senate Select Committee. That's the same committee that Rubio sits on. He filed a complaint alleging retaliation. He claims to have viewed the documents reporting that Benito Mussolini's government recovered non-human spacecraft back in 1933. The Vatican and the Five Eyes assisted the U.S. in procuring in 1944 and 1945. Grush also asserts individuals with whom he conversed shared the concern that American citizens have been eliminated as a part of the cover-up. In response, both the NASA, NASA, and the DoD, Department of Defense, issued statements saying, respectively, no evidence has been found about extraterrestrial life. We have no verifiable information about this, and we have no practice of reverse engineering ET's spaceships. But they're holding a hearing on this, and the Republicans have some good questions. And so we've got a preview from the Congress people. We're going to be leading this hearing, including Representative Burchett and Representative Luna, explaining what's coming. It's on. Tim, you're on.
I want to thank y'all for being here today. I'm Tim Burchett from Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District.
What's up, Tim?
And we're going to have the rest of the Congress folks are going to fill in here in a second. Next Wednesday, July 26th at 10 a.m., the House Oversight Committee will hold on unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs. I prefer to call them UFOs. It will be held by the Oversight Committee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs. The witnesses will be as follows. David Grush, he's a decorated former combat officer who served in Afghanistan, and he recently told the world news about his experiences serving on a UAP task force led by the U.S. Navy from 2019 to 2022.
Working directly on
Commander David
investigation.
Fravor. He's a former Navy commander who shot the famous Tic Tac video that you've seen. It's on YouTube. It's 60 Minutes did a special on it. He did that in 2004 during a routine training flight over the Pacific Ocean. Ryan Graves, he's a former Navy pilot. He reported multiple UAP encounters during training flights. And the interesting thing about Ryan was that he warned the Pentagon that these encounters are putting our pilots at risk. He attended the hearing held by the House Intelligence Committee last year, but was not allowed to speak. If you all remember, he wasn't even allowed admittance. He had to have someone gave him press credentials to get in, which I thought really stunk. Last year, the House Intelligence Committee held a hearing on UAPs. They brought in some Pentagon bureaucrats who only had 2 answers to the questions they were asked. I don't know, or that's classified.
That's typical.
This hearing is going to be different. We're going to have witnesses who can speak frankly to the public about their experiences. We've had a heck of a lot of pushback about this hearing. We've had members of Congress who fought us. We've had members of the intelligence community and also the Pentagon. Even NASA backed out on us. There are a lot of people who don't want this to come to light. I've even tried to introduce an amendment to the Federal Aviation Administration Reauthorization Bill, and all that would do would require the Federal Aviation Administration to report UAP sightings by commercial pilots to Congress. The intelligence community shut it down. This is ridiculous, folks. They do exist or they don't exist. They keep telling us they don't exist, but they block every opportunity for us to get a hold of the information to prove that they do exist. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, dadgummit, whatever the truth may be.
Dadgummit!
We're done with the cover-up. I want to introduce my friend Jared Moskowitz. He has a legal and an incredible analytical mind, and he's a friend of mine. Jared?
Let's do it, Jared.
Thanks, Tim. Good morning, and I want to thank my colleagues behind me that we're all leading this effort on a bipartisan basis. And ultimately, it really is about getting to just greater government transparency. As Tim said, that, when we ask these questions, if the answers are there are no unidentified aerial phenomenon, then say that. But that's not what the answers are. The answers are we can't tell you. And so that leads to speculation. And so this is something that has undoubtedly captured the public's attention in multiple administrations. And it's just finally time the U.S. government answer questions about what they know and when did they know it. Taxpayers are paying for programs that are keeping this information secret. They have a right to know where their dollars are going. And with claims coming forward as technology is getting better, people are capturing things on their phones now. We need to know whether these things are they domestic, are they foreign, or are they something else? Or do they not exist? And the government needs to have straight answers. And so the American people deserve to know the truth on this. Unnecessarily censoring things or overclassification is what leads to all of these theories that have been out there. So again, I want to thank my colleagues behind me for their leadership, and we look forward to having a productive hearing on topic on a bipartisan basis. Thank you very much.
And I was wondering if they were projections.
Speaker will be Representative Luna. She's from Florida. She is a military veteran. Her husband's combat wounded veteran. And
are these things projections? He said they could be aliens. They could not exist. These could be people just seeing things. It could just be technology that we're not familiar with, that's strange, that looks different, but it's actually human-based, it's just all very advanced. Who knows? But if it is a projection and it's the military's, well, they're not going to want to confirm that for us. They're not going to say, well, this is our technology that we're testing on our own pilots. So that might be the basis for all of the stonewalling, because there is just a simple human explanation for it.
Proud to have her on our team. Representative Luna.
It's Luna!
Good morning, everyone. For decades, countless of Americans have questioned our government's lack of transparency regarding UAPs in our nation's airspace. These same questions have been echoed by many leaders on a bipartisan basis, from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama, from Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump, from Marco Rubio to Chuck Schumer, from the former Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, to current officials at the National Security Council. They have all called for disclosure of UAPs. If this was a court case, the court would be compelled to take up the thousands of testimonies, images, videos, and eyewitness accounts from doctors, pilots, scientists, and active duty service members. The status quo on the part of the U.S. government has been to leave the American people in the dark regarding information of UAPs. They refuse to answer questions posed by whistleblowers, avoiding the concerns of Americans, and acknowledging that the possible threat of UAP poses to our national security as well as public safety. It is extremely unnecessary and an overclassification. If the last few months have taught me anything, especially in investigating this, it is that this issue is in the hands of the American people and they deserve answers. I just want to be fully transparent here. Myself, Representative Burchett and Representative Gates had attended an Air Force base, and we were blocked not only by the Pentagon but by the Department of the Air Force from seeing information, talking to witnesses. And after much arm twisting, we got some of the information. But the fact is that they answer to Congress and thus the American people. And any government entity that attempts to stonewall us is doing nothing in the invested interest of the American people. When I take at face value the numerous roadblocks that we've been presented with, it leads me to believe that they are indeed hiding information. I look forward to bringing this topic to light and finding out the truth of what is really out there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because she's not alone on this. Typically the response is, well, she's just Republicans, GOP. It's like, hey, Chuck Schumer introduced a whole amendment on this. When you see Congress unified against the executive branch, that means they really feel like there is a power imbalance there. I mean, we don't see that almost ever. You could do a compare and contrast on this with trying to go after the FBI for documents. FBI is under the executive branch. Government in Congress, the legislative branch, Senate, Congress people, Oversight Committee, they scream at the FBI, but they don't have the agreement of the Democrats in those requests, and so they really don't go anywhere. You know, it's just kind of like, well, the Democrats scream at the executive branch when they don't control it. The Republicans scream at the executive branch when they don't control it. But now when they're unified, when it's almost everybody on both sides of the aisle saying the executive branch is not being very honest with us. And what's strange about this too is that we have the different presidents who also have always been curious about this topic. I remember seeing different clips from Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. And both of them talked about aliens in this strange way that, no, they have no idea. And Bill Clinton really said, and I really don't know. I said, bring everything to me and let me know. And nobody told me anything. And it's hard to tell, if you did know about aliens, if anybody did come and tell you and you were the president, they're like, I'll show you this, but you can't see anything, or you can't talk about it, you'd probably say, all right, I won't talk about it. But if you are the president and there's other people with more classified information in the United States government, and don't they have more power than you? And isn't that power extra because constitutional? There's nowhere in the Constitution, to my knowledge, that excludes a UFO intelligence agency from the executive power. And this is Congress now trying to claw that back in. They're recognizing that something's out of whack here. And when they're both in unison on it, that says something.
Next speaker will be Representative Burleson. He and I traveled to our southern border.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for spearheading this effort. I'll start out by saying that I'm a skeptic on a lot of stuff. I come from a computer science background and finance background, so I tend to err on the side of things that I can see and touch. And I don't give into conspiracies, but too often the federal government works outside of the public eye, and in conspiracies and rumors tend to flourish in places where the federal government is silent or not transparent. The American people deserve to know what their tax dollars are funding and what the government knows. That's just plain and simple. The other thing I think is important,
not just with UFOs,
is that our servicemen and women who are risking their lives for this country and are encountering these devices, we owe it to them to find out what is in the air that might potentially harm their lives. What's disturbing is when you hear about the accounts of 14 near misses in air.
Weird.
Next week's hearing is about transparency. Like many Americans, I read David Grush's story when it first came out and watched the TV interviews. I was struck by the sheer amount of detail. So I was able to contact him and hear directly from him in a lengthy phone call interview. And after speaking with him, I was convinced that the American people deserve to hear from him directly. That's why I asked Chairman Comer to hold this hearing. And I'm grateful that the chairman has decided to hold a hearing so that we can ask questions and get the answers that the American people deserve. It is time for transparency. And I'll say one more thing. It's the responsibility of members on oversight to do. This is our job. This is exactly what our responsibility is. So I'd like to thank Tim and my other colleagues for their leadership in putting this together. And I want to thank the chairman for his support.
We'll answer your question. I, too, would like to thank Chairman Comer and Speaker McCarthy, who have allowed us to do this. Yes, sir. Good morning. Just anybody.
My question starts with you here, but walk us through what has happened. You say you tried to get information from the military.
Yeah, we were.
And if others have other, give us very specific things, what the inquiry was, what they responded, how you went back, and therefore what your thesis is and what they're trying to cover up.
What Representative Luna and I experienced was our colleague Matt Gaetz was contacted by some folks that said that some people would like to talk about some information, some things they'd seen, and we contacted the Air Force and we flew. We were told we were going to be briefed on this issue, the UFO, UAP. I like UFO. We got down there, and it was the traditional skiff, James Bond stuff. You leave your phone, your Fitbit. We go in, and the synopsis had nothing to do. It was some pretty big, important stuff, but it was not anything to do with the UFO. And we stopped the thing rightfully right in the middle of it and said, hey, this is not what you all told us we were coming down here for. And they basically told us, we're not going to give it to you. The arrogance of this general was beyond belief.
The Pentagon, this is Department Department of the Air Force. It was the commanding, yeah, of course. It was the commanding general of Eglin Air Force Base. And ultimately, even before we got down there, the Pentagon actually tried to cancel the field hearing. And also, it's important to note that these were whistleblowers. These were pilots that had come forward to Representative Gates' office with information saying this needs to be investigated. We have an increase in sightings in this region, and it's a cause for concern for national security reasons. We don't know what it is. So we went down there. We were stonewalled. They would not give us access to testimony from some of the pilots. They were hiding images and information.
We were told there was pictures available, which we still haven't seen.
And ultimately what ended up happening is we had to actually call House Armed Services. Chairman Rogers got involved. The Pentagon got involved. The Department of the Air Force got involved. We actually got into an argument with the general of that base. And it's important to note that we were there simply to follow up on the whistleblowers that came forward with information. And so if the Department of the Air Force, if the Pentagon thinks that they're above Congress, they have something else coming to them. We told them we were going to do this if they continued to hide information. And ultimately, the American people deserve the facts.
Also, I'd like to make for the record, numerous pilots have told us, and I'm sure they've told Representative Luna, that when they come forward with this, they're supposed to be provided some sort of whistleblower protection, but they're not. The brass will tell you they're debriefed. Well, they're interrogated for 8 hours, I believe, at some point. Then they have a blemish on their record, and then they carry this stigma. And we've been actually told that they will destroy video evidence because they don't want to have to go back in and have to be pulled off the flight line and be interrogated for 8 hours. Go ahead.
If something like that out there exists, when there's something from another planet or another universe or whatever, and if they were to say, oh yes, this is what we think it is, would we have riots in the streets? People
Absolutely not. And that's
what do you think would happen?
I think it's the arrogance of our government.
Why don't you think that would happen? That people would literally...
Why would it?
The question was, do you think that if there are aliens and we reveal this stuff, that there will be riots in the streets? And his answer is obviously great. No, we don't need our government to protect us with bubble wrap and safety blankets. Tell us what's going on. We don't need to be protected with classifications out the wazoo. We want transparency, especially when our government might be involved in the cover-up.
55 more people believe in UFOs than believe in Congress. I mean, look at the polling that's out now.
That's
55, 58, depends on who you talk to. They believe there's something else out there, and these are legitimate polls.
More competent.
I'm stopped every weekend. I'm back in Knoxville. Man, I'm talking about educated people, professional people. I'm on airplanes. I'm traveling all over the country. People will stop me and tell me about an experience. Decorated veterans. These people, why would they risk their reputations and careers over something that they're lying about? It's too big right now, and I don't believe they can keep their thumb in the dam too much longer because people are coming forward at too rapid of a rate.
Right, and so that's interesting because he's meeting with these people and he's talking to them, and Rubio's talking to them, and Schumer's talking to them, and these people are causing them to feel like they are credible and like their stories are legitimate. We see that craft being tracked, flying around on the screen. Rapid speeds, they're tracking it, it changes direction. Floating, we see no real emissions of gas or anything that would propel it. So it's very curious. And they're going to be holding a full hearing on it. The Oversight Committee in Congress will be covering it, my friends. Hopefully you join us as we do.